Hey beautiful souls, David Essery here. I was preparing a few days ago to channel a message like I regularly do, and the first thing I always do is to prepare my energy. I do my chakras, I clear my full body system, I call in a few certain energies in order to support me in the work that I do, so I'm ensuring I'm doing it at the highest possible frequency. And I was running through my chakras as normal, and I got to my Alta Major, which is right at the back of the head. And it was like alarm bells were going off. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? So I instantly grabbed pen and paper and just sort of tuned in to what was going on there. And Sanat Kumara came through, who's been showing up for me quite a lot of late actually, with a message that I'd like to share with you guys today, and then just talk about in a little bit more detail. And this is what you had to say about the Alta Major chakra. Please, my child, draw your attention to the Alta Major at the back of the head. We stand at the hour of its transformation, as the final remnants of its old blueprint are dissolved. No longer must it function as a facilitator of the great experiment, for its role has been fulfilled. Now it shall embrace its golden future as an architect of the sixth dimensional age. It is to be rebirthed within each and every one on Earth. The duration of this process shall differ from one to another, but its commencement is guaranteed in all. In its new golden form, it shall act as a shining beacon of sixth dimensional communication, supporting the psychic gifts of the throat and third eyes, assisting the initiates to express and to understand with intuition and conviction. This shall be a crucial role of the new age you are to build. No longer shall deception and distraction become the narrative of the people. Instead, truth and love shall become the language that shall define a united world, one where all can come together in harmony and unity for the good of all. This is the future that awaits you. In loving wisdom, Sanat Kumara. Thank you, Sanat, for that message. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the Alta Major, and then we're going to break this down a little bit. So the Alta Major has been a very well-known chakra for thousands of years. It's not something new, but it was never actually a part of the 7 third-dimensional chakras that we were working with prior to 2012. But it was always something that was there. We've got tons and tons of chakras. Essentially, all a chakra is a vortex point within our energetic systems where multiple kind of energy lines cross. When the energies come together into a convergence in these places, it creates a chakra. We have them in our hands, we've got them in our ears, in our eyes, we've got loads of them. But really, we only work with a small set. So say we were working with the 7 third-dimensional chakras prior to the beginning of the Ascension process. Then on, I believe it was 2014, the 12 fifth-dimensional chakras came online, and we added 5 new chakras to this column. And the frequency of all of them changed massively. The roles of them changed in some instances, and the colours along with it. Because colour is essentially vibration, is frequency. And so as the frequency of something can change, the colour can change. Even the chakras that are kind of the same colour as before, they're not exactly the same colour, if you know what I mean. Like, you can have white and off-white, the vibration of them is so much higher. And then, of course, we moved through the solstice in June this year, and we had an incredible frequency jump. And they're now moving towards the 6th dimension. On top of that, in the last couple of years, we've had another additional 3 chakras come online. First at a 5th dimensional blueprint, and now obviously into the 6th. Now, one of these 3 chakras that came online and joined the 5th dimensional set to create the 15 chakras was the Alta Major. And the reason why this was upgraded, basically all of these upgrades, the new chakras, changes to our energetic systems, upgrades to our pathways, these are all part of the ongoing process of this ascension. So essentially, our planet, our beautiful Mother Earth, began her ascension in 2012, at which point her vibration started increasing rapidly, her basic personal energy level. And this is her ascension process. She's going up and up and up. And because we are inhabiting her, we have no choice but to kind of try and keep up with her. That's essentially what we're doing. As she goes up in vibration, so do we. And our energetic systems have had to change in order to accommodate the vibration that we're at. We wouldn't be able to operate really very well at all if we were still using the very, very limited 7 third-dimensional chakras. The vibration that we're at now is well above that we were even in Atlantis, for instance. It's truly incredible, the level that we're operating at. And that can be hard to kind of understand, really, because in Atlantis, we were essentially ascended masters, where, people could teleport, they could levitate, the healing technologies were, out of this world, like something out of science fiction. Truly incredible. But the primary reason for that wasn't so much about the vibration of the planet that they were on or anything like that. It was the mind. They grew up in a society where their psychic gifts were encouraged and they were taught from a very, very young age. They weren't taught of limitation like so many of us are from a young age, picking up density and things from our lifetimes, from all the experiences that make us feel unworthy. They were fully actualized, and they had complete and utter belief because it was never questioned. It's just the way it was. So when that made them capable of incredible things. That, of course, when we can overcome these limitations within us, means we are capable of incredible things. In Atlantis, they were working with the 12 fifth-dimensional chakras, like we were up until very recently. And they came back online for us, as I say, I think it was around 2014, if I recall. But before that, we were using the 7th third-dimensional chakras. And essentially, what happened at the fall of Atlantis, just over 10,000 years ago now, it was actually, so the Atlantean, they call Atlantis an experiment, right? It was the first time that we really took physical form on planet Earth, and it was an experiment to see the frequency in which that they could hold, whether they could maintain that fifth dimensional loving vibration while still in a physical body. Before that, in sort of Lemuria, for instance, they were more energetic beings. And the Atlantis experiment, it came to an end, and a new experiment began. One basically that's been running for 10,000 years, and that actually ended on December 21st in 2012. The cosmic moment, as it's often referred to. And that was technically the end of the Atlantean experiment, or this final phase, and the beginning of the ascension process. But this 10-year window was basically about trying to see how we could live in a physical form disconnected from source. So to be at the third dimension is actually about being disconnected from source. And the Atlanteans that were still around when that transition ended, when Atlantis fell, they went all around the world. There's people, they went to Egypt, they went to Greece, they went to South America, they went all over the place, which is why the knowledge that we have, from these societies is, you see it mimicked all around the world, and why there's all these incredible stories of essentially gods in all of these different places, because they were Atlanteans, they were ascended beings, essentially. And even though, because they were taking this more limited form, we had agreed to go through this 10,000 year experiment to be disconnected, the Atlanteans actually shut down a lot of their systems they moved to the third dimensional chakras, the throats were shut down because the throats were so unbelievably powerful. So that they began the phase of living in limitation. And of course, all of the generations since then have been living in that same level of limitation, working with the 7 third dimensional chakras as it was, which really didn't disconnect us from source. It's not really the right word, because if you can't disconnect from God, because we are God. We wouldn't exist without that. But to severely limit our abilities. And of course, when that experiment ended in 2012, we began this ascension process, and what we're in now essentially is that return to this connected state. And throughout that period, the Alta Majors, at least one of the major functions of the Alta Major, because all of the chakras kind of have more than one purpose really, but one of the major functions of it was it actually connected us into the third dimensional systems on planet Earth. We've talked a lot on here in the past about the third dimensional matrix, or the construct, or whatever you want to call it, which was essentially the energetic system that was created by 3D, by all of the thoughts and feelings of greed and control and all of the negative aspects that ruled our societies for 10,000 years, took on its own life. It was its own energetic form. And actually the Alta Major connected us all directly into this energetic system. And this was kind of part of the process. It's part of being limited, as we were all plugged into the 3D world. And one of the major things that happens when we each begin our own awakening process is the Alta Major begins to disconnect from that matrix. And with that disconnection, we then begin to be able to think for ourselves a little bit more. That's why, a classic part of the awakening process is starting to see through the nonsense in the news and all of these different things that they try to make us believe. And we start to wake up and go, oh, hang on a minute, I know that's not right. I'm not believing that. That's not my reality. And so the awakening begins, and that's what we're seeing around the world on a really mass level now. But really, that started in 2020, the year that Tim Wilde and I were both referring to as the year of the Alta Major. Of course, it's when all of the lockdowns started happening and all of that stuff around the world. And we kind of reached a peak in what the third dimensional matrix was doing, and it was so obvious, the falsehoods in so much of it. And that process triggered an awakening in a huge number of people around the world, and began a disconnection of that Alta Major. And as a species, we came a really long way in that year, in terms of developing the Alta Major, beginning to shut down those old connections and raising its vibration. We began the establishment of a fifth dimensional unity consciousness, which is essentially what's going to replace those old connections. It's a kind of a much higher frequency network of energy that we are all plugged into, all of those that are kind of awake and using that chakra we're plugged into, that will allow us to operate as one species from the highest perspective for the good of all. It's going to become a really powerful and positive connection that's going to play a major role in the future of this planet as things start to unravel. So we went through massive shifts with the Alta Major. Now, of course, we stand here now in December 2024, and last month a lot of us came together, united our energies for the collapsing of the third dimensional matrix. Essentially this construct, this matrix that I was discussing earlier, that was a energetic collection of all of those negative aspects of our society, that basically it was a field of energy that surrounded our planet, and we dissolved it. The final remnants of it are just kind of clearing away now, and we're starting to see reflections of this in our world. And that doesn't, Melchizedek said at the time, that doesn't mean that the current kind of control systems of this planet are going to stop playing their games, but just that people won't be listening to it. You know, more and more people are going to begin that awakening, and because they're going to see through. It doesn't have the energy that it had before it, because that's what the construct was doing. It was fueling all of their endeavors. Sorry, slight intersection there. I'm having some problems with my camera. I'm waiting for a new one to be delivered, so I'm going to have to just change to the slightly inferior one for the rest of the video. But it was a perfect segue from what I was talking about. So really, we did that work in November, in last month, to collapse that third dimensional matrix. And of course, with that gone, the Alta Major doesn't have a point to anchor into anymore. And that, of course, brings massive shifts and everything. And this is really what Sanat Kumara's message was all about. So I just want to dive into this a little bit more, and just talk about what it was that he was saying. So he said, "We stand at the hour of its transformation, as the final remnants of its blueprint are dissolved. No longer must it function as a facilitator of the great experiment, for its role has been fulfilled." Essentially, its role was there to support the great experiment. You know, the last 10,000 years since Atlantis, its role was to limit our connection, to keep us anchored into that third dimensional matrix. And now that blueprint is being dissolved, it's free to shift its energy. He said, now it should embrace its golden future as an architect of the sixth dimensional age. It is to be rebirthed within each and every one on Earth. The duration of this process shall differ from one to another, but its commencement is guaranteed in all. So basically, it's downloading a new sixth dimensional blueprint at the moment. It's undergoing this massive shift, and this is going to be the case for absolutely every single person on the planet, whether they are awake or not, whether they're spiritual or not. Everybody is going to go through this process, and it's already begun. It may be that some of us, you know, that are actively working with our chakras and things like that, I would expect are going to move through this and upgrade it much quicker than others, but the process is underway. He says, in its new golden form. Now, I don't know specifically if he's saying that it's going to change to gold, so the actual chakra is going to become gold, or if he's referring to that as in, you know, like we talk about the golden age, doesn't mean our planet is literally going to turn to gold. It's kind of gold is considered incredibly high frequency, so it's kind of a descriptive term for it. I'm not sure yet, anyway, quite how he's referring to that. But he says, in its new golden form, it shall act as a shining beacon of sixth dimensional communication, supporting the psychic gifts of the throat and third eyes, assisting the initiates to express and to understand with intuition and conviction. Now this is the bit that I find really, really interesting. So back in Atlantis, for instance, because they were such highly spiritually evolved beings, they actually communicated most of the time through telepathy. Everyone could read each other's thoughts, so they could simply communicate on that wave without ever actually having to speak. And the voice was so highly regarded, the understanding of the power of sound was so profound that they saved speaking with their voices for really special work, for healing, for instance, for really saying things that were really, really important. You know, most of the time, most of the communication was psychically. And I've always thought that that was our future. Right now, the idea of everyone being able to read each other's minds sounds horrifying, because we've all got our own secrets and individual stories that run inside and stuff like that. But at a point that we get to where we are that evolved, that we've let go through of all of our shadow selves, and we really have nothing to hide, that is the future of our communication. So this is what he's saying, is that at a sixth dimensional level, the Alta Major is to support the third eye in our psychic abilities and the throat in, you know, that powerful level of sound vibration that it is. And that is going to allow us to, as he says, assisting the initiates to express and to understand with intuition and conviction, to speak with truth, to understand, to hear intuitively. He says this should be a crucial role of the new age you are to build. No longer shall deception and distraction become the narrative of the people. Essentially how we have been under the third dimension. Instead, truth and love should become the language that define a united world. One where all can come together in harmony and unity for the good of all. This is the future that awaits you. The fact that we're seeing these shifts happening now is just a clear indication of how far we've come on this process. Without that density of the third dimension holding it back, it's like the shackles have been taken off, and this is just the beginning. This is really, for me anyway, this is really exciting stuff. I love this stuff. I love seeing the shifts and the progression of the process. And yeah, fascinating. I can't wait to see where this goes. I can't wait to see if it does become gold. I can't wait to see how that begins to affect the throat, how it affects the third eye. And that's not to say that this is going to be a quick transition. You know, as I say, that mass disconnection of the Alta Major really kind of hit its peak in 2020. We're here now 4 years later, so it might not necessarily be a quick evolution of the Alta Major here, but it is happening. So there we go. That's what I wanted to share with you today, really, this update on the changing of the Alta Major chakra. I really hope that's been interesting for you. And if you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe. I share regular channel messages, meditations and stuff like that. And yeah, would love to have you as a part of our small community. I will be back again very soon, hopefully with a better camera. Sending you all so much of love from my heart to yours. Bye bye.